Hello students, welcome in today's class. As you can see, today I'll discuss the third chapter from your honeysuckle book. The title of this chapter is Taro's Reward. So this is a Japanese story which is reformed or retold in English. This is a story about a thoughtful and loving son. He works hard to fulfill his parents' wishes and gets some unexpected help. So what was that unexpected help? Let's discuss about it. A young woodcutter named Taro lived with his mother and father on a lonely hillside. So there was a young woodcutter whose name was Taro, and Taro lived with his parents on a lonely hillside. All day long he chopped wood in the forest. So throughout the whole day he chopped. Chopped means cut into pieces. He cut the woods of the forest in the forest. Though he worked very hard, he earned very little money. In spite of working very hard, he earned very little money. This made him sad. So what made Taro sad? In spite of working so hard and earning so less made Taro sad. For he was a thoughtful son and wanted to give his old parents everything they needed. So he was a thoughtful son. Thoughtful means careful. He was a very careful son and he wanted to give his old parents everything they needed, they desired. One evening, when Taro and his parents were sitting in a corner of their hut, a strong wind began to blow. So in a fine evening, Taro and his parents were sitting in a particular corner of their hut, and suddenly a strong wind began to blow. It whistled through the cracks of the hut and everyone felt very cold. Whistled through means passed through with a whistling sound, and cracks means narrow gaps. So the strong wind passed through the narrow gaps of their hut, and for that reason everyone felt very cold. Suddenly Taro's father said, "I wish I had a cup of sake. It would warm me and do my old heart good." So Taro's father said that he wished that he had a cup of sake. What is sake? Sake is one kind of popular Japanese drink, and with that sake it would warm his body, his father's body, and do my old heart good, and it would make his heart feel good. This made Taro sadder than ever, for the heart-warming drink called sake was very expensive. As I said in the beginning, that in spite of working very hard, Taro earned very less money, and the drink sake was very expensive, very costly. He cannot afford sake for his father, and that made him more sad. How do I earn more money? He asked himself. So he started asking himself, thinking himself that how can he earn more amount of money? How do I get a little sake for my poor old father? He decided to work harder than before. So next morning, Taro jumped out of bed earlier than usual and made his way to the forest. So in the next morning, as he decided last night to work harder than before, Taro jumped out of bed earlier than usual. He woke up earlier than usual and made his way to the forest. He went to the forest. He chopped and cut as the sun climbed, and soon he was so warm that he had to take off his jacket. So he started cutting woods as the sun climbed. Climbed means here raises, and it made his body feel very warm, and for that reason he had to take off his jacket. His mouth was dry and his face was wet with sweat. So as he was working so hard in the sun, that made his mouth feel very dry and his face become wet with sweat. My poor old father, he thought, if only he was as warm as I. So he started thinking that if his father's body would be as warm as his body, and with that he began to chop even faster, thinking of the extra money he must earn to buy the sake to warm the old man's bones. So thinking of that extra money that he must earn to buy the sake, he started working more harder, more faster. Then suddenly Taro stopped chopping. So suddenly Taro stopped chopping. Why? What was that sound he heard? Could it possibly be rushing water? So he stopped chopping the woods because suddenly he could hear some sound of the rushing water. Rushing means flowing water. Taro could not remember ever seeing or hearing a rushing stream in that part of the forest. So there was no knowledge in Taro's mind that if he ever heard or if he had seen any stream in that part of the forest, and he was thirsty because he was working so hard in the sun. The axe dropped out of his hands and he ran in the direction of the sound. So being thirsty, the axe dropped out from his hand and he ran in the direction of the sound in the hope of getting some drink so that he can drink and relieve his thirst. Taro saw a beautiful little waterfall hidden behind a rock, and suddenly Taro discovered a beautiful waterfall which was hidden behind a rock. Kneeling at a place where the water flowed quietly, he cupped a little in his hands and put it to his lips. Kneeling means being in a position in which our body is supported by our knee, যেটাকে আমরা বাংলায় বলি হাঁটু গেড়ে বসা, knelt down বা kneeling at a place where the water flowed quietly. So he knelt down where the water was flowing very quietly. He cupped a little in his hands. Cupped a little in his hands means took some water in his hands. He took some water in his hands and put it to his lips. Was it water or was it sake? He tasted it again and again, and always it was the delicious sake instead of cold water. Because he was surprised to discover sake flowing like a waterfall from that part of the forest, and for that reason he was tasting it again and again, and every time he found it a delicious sake. Taro quickly filled the pitcher he had with him and hurried home. Pitcher means a pot which is made out of mud. Okay, so Taro filled his pot that he carried with him and hurried home. Hurried means moving in rush or move in rush. The old man was delighted with the sake. Taro's father was delighted, that means glad or happy with the sake. After only one swallow of the liquid, he stopped shivering and did a little dance in the middle of the floor. So after having only one swallow, only one swallow means consume or drinking of the liquid, he stopped shivering. Shivering means shaking. He stopped shaking and did a little dance in the middle of the floor, being happy with the sake or satisfied. That afternoon, a neighbor stopped by for a visit. So a neighbor came to Taro's house for a visit. Taro's father politely offered her a cup of sake. So Taro's father offered her a cup of sake for showing hospitality. The lady drank it greedily. Greedily means in a greedy manner, and thanked the old man. The lady, that means the neighbor was a lady, and that lady thanked his father for offering her such delicious sake. Then Taro told her the story of the magic waterfall. Taro told that neighbor, that visitor, that lady, the story of that magic waterfall that he had discovered in that morning. Thanking them for the delicious drink, she left in a hurry. She quickly left Taro's hut. By nightfall, she had spread the story throughout the whole village. That neighbor spread the story of the magic waterfall throughout their village. That evening, there was a long procession of visitors to the woodcutter's house. So what happened after that? Every neighbors of that area, of that village, they came to Taro's house for what? To listen more about that magic waterfall. There was a long procession. Procession means a number of people moving forward in a particular order. They all came to Taro's house, Taro's hut. Each man heard the story of the waterfall and took a sip of the sake. They all took a sip of the sake and they all heard the story of the waterfall. In less than an hour, the pitcher was empty. The pitcher became empty in less than an hour. Next morning, Taro started for work even earlier than the morning before. So he woke up more earlier than the last morning. He carried with him the largest pitcher he owned, for he intended first of all to go to the waterfall. So he carried the largest pitcher, the largest pot he owned, and he intended means planned, to go to the waterfall at first. When he reached it, he found to his great surprise all his neighbors there. And when he reached in front of the waterfall, he found that every neighbors were already present there. They were carrying pitchers, jars, buckets, anything they could find to hold the magic sake. Every person, every neighbor of Taro or every villagers were carrying anything, any pitcher or any jar or any bucket, anything they could find to carry that magic sake. Then one villager knelt and held his mouth under the waterfall to drink. So what happened after that? One of the villagers knelt down. Like I said in the beginning, kneeling and knelt down both means the same, hatugure bosha. So one of the villagers knelt and held his mouth under the waterfall to drink. He drank again and again and then shouted angrily, "Water! Nothing but water!" That villager found it simply a running water. Others also tried, but there was no sake, only cold water. Hearing that, other villagers also came to try that liquid that was flowing through that waterfall, and they also discovered that there was no sake, only cold water. "We have been tricked." Tricked means deceived or cheated, shouted the villagers. "Where is Taro? Let us drown him in this waterfall." Drown means submerging. Okay, drown means submerging. They decided to submerge Taro in this waterfall because they thought that Taro had tricked them, deceived them. But Taro had been wise enough to slip behind a rock when he saw how things were going. So Taro had been wise enough to slip behind. Slip behind means hide. Okay, hide behind a rock, and he was observing that how things were going. He was nowhere to be found as he was hiding behind the rock. Muttering their anger and disappointment, the villagers left the place one by one. Muttering means speaking unclearly, যেটাকে আমরা বাংলায় বলি বিড়বিড় করা। তো muttering their anger and disappointment, the villagers, every one of them, left the place one by one. Taro came out from his hiding place. So after that he came out from the rock. Was it true? He wondered. So that means Taro started wondering that was it true? Was the sacred dream? Once more he caught a little liquid in his hand and put it to his lips. That means he swallowed the liquid from his hand to his mouth. It was the same fine shake, and again Taro found it the same delicious shake. To the thoughtful son, the magic waterfall gave the delicious shake. That means it was the magic of the nature. To everyone else, it gave only cold water. So to every villager, it was a plain cold water, and to Taro, it was the delicious shake. The story of Taro and his magic waterfall reached the Emperor of Japan. So this story of Taro and his magic waterfall reached to the King of Japan. Emperor means king. He sent for the young woodcutter and rewarded him 20 pieces of gold for having been so good and kind. So the Emperor of Japan sent for means called. The young woodcutter means Taro and rewarded Taro with 20 pieces of gold for having been so good and kind and thoughtful to his parents. Then he named the most beautiful fountain in the city after Taro. So the king of the Japan named that waterfall after the name of the Taro, because Taro had discovered that waterfall. This, said the emperor, was to encourage all children to honor and obey their parents. So this action of Taro for being so good, for being so kind, for being so thoughtful and responsible to his parents, for this reason the king of Japan named that waterfall after the name of the Taro, and this was to encourage all children to honor and obey their parents. So what have we learned from this story? Any child who will love, respect, take care of his or her parents will surely gain or earn some good luck or some respect or some love or blessings in return as reward. Definitely they will get back something. Let's move on to these question answers, which will be your homework. So the first homework is to solve this part working with the text. There are 5 questions under number A. The first question is, why did Taro run in the direction of the stream? And there is 5 written in bracket. That means the answer of this question is mentioned in the 5th paragraph. Similarly, there is everything mentioned in bracket. You have to follow those paras to write down the answers of this question. In B, it is said that mark the right item. Okay, there are 3 options. After each sentence you have to choose the correct option. This all you have to do by your own. Okay, let's move on to the working with language. This will be your homework as well. From working with the language, the number A says, strike off the words in the box below that are not suitable. Okay, there is a sentence mentioned below and you have to pick up the words which are not suitable according to this sentence. Taro wanted to give his old parents everything they needed. This shows that he was. So this nature of Taro for wanting to give his old parents everything they needed, they desired, what kind of quality or what kind of thinking it shows about Taro? Thoughtful, hardworking, loving, honest, considerate, considerate means sympathetic, trustworthy, efficient, efficient means skilled or expert, okay, and lastly kind. এদের মধ্যে যেটা ম্যাচ করছে না সেটা লিখতে হবে, that are not suitable, okay. Let's move on to number B. This made Taro sadder than ever. This refers to, okay, so what made Taro sadder than ever? You have to choose that from these three options. Similarly, there is one other. This said the emperor was to encourage all children to honor and obey their parents. This refers to, so what was said by the emperor to encourage all children to obey and honor their parents? You have to choose that from these three options. Let's move on to number C. Arrange the words below in the pairs that rhyme. Okay, so there are quite a few words you can see in this box. Out of these words which are mentioned only in this box, you have to choose the rhyming words. There are two mentioned, young, lung, money, sunny. Similarly you have to find other rhyming words. I am helping you in one. As you can see, first and last, these two are also rhyming with each other. So similarly you have to find other rhyming words which are rhyming with each other as much as you can. Next, there is D. Fill in the blanks with words from the box. Okay, so you have to fill these blanks with the help of these words that are mentioned in the box. Let's move on to D2. Find the sentences in the story and fill in the blanks. Okay, so there are 5 sentences again, as you can see, and there is written some number in first bracket. That means the answer of this sentence or the reference of this sentence would be in this mentioned para. Okay, this made Taro dash than ever. এই সেন্টেন্সটার রেফারেন্স কোথায় থাকবে? নাম্বার 3 প্যারায়। তো সেখান থেকে খুঁজে বের করে লিখতে হবে। এভাবে নাম্বার 2টা করে নেবে। স্পিকিং অ্যান্ড রাইটিং যেটা রয়েছে সেটা আপাতত স্কিপ করছি, আজকে করতে হবে না। লাস্ট যেটা করতে হবে হোমওয়ার্ক, সেটা হচ্ছে ডিকটেশন। Your teacher will speak the words given below. Write against each 2 new words that rhyme with it. Okay, so there are 5 words mentioned below. You have to write 2 rhyming words which are rhyming with this. I can help you with this number 3. First, you have to write 2 words which would be last or vast. Okay, so similarly you have to do the rest. So I am repeating your homework once again. Your homework for today is working with the test A, B, both, working with the language A, B, C, D, all, and dictation only. Okay, that's all about today's class. We'll see you in my next